been doing pretty good on that this year. So, hey, how about that? Yeah, beautiful fall day, huh? September the 3rd. I hope everybody had a great Labor Day holiday. Hope you didn't really labor too much. But you had a great time with the family or whatever you might have done. So we're gonna call in Miss Mel Tracy. How you doing there, Mel?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, Jerry?
I'm doing.
That's good.
My glasses are reflecting the strange screen light tonight. I need to work on that too. Look like I have like lights in my eyes. But anyway, yeah, you just watch the screen too. I think you can admit people too
Yep,
if I'm
yep, I'm
doing,
watching.
but we'll get that straightened out for next time. Yeah, we're using an updated Zoom, so there's things I can set that I need to learn how to set for the next time that you can back the password that we don't have to admit people. But like I said, I sent out the invites really quickly on Sunday before I got busy doing my Sunday night and Monday things. Anyway, so we want to talk about tonight, Mel. To start out, we want to. Oh yeah, you have a favorite submarine sandwich?
Oh man. I don't know if I have a favorite, but it's definitely a go-to for a lunch or a dinner. But didn't you tell me recently that you had some kind of strange sub experience yourself?
Yeah, I did. I went into a local Walmart about lunchtime, and this Walmart has a Subway in it. So I said, well, why not pick up a Subway here for lunch? So I went over to I went next door to the Subway in the Walmart, and I ordered my sub. They said we don't have any lettuce. We're sold out of lettuce. Yet I could look right across there about 30 feet outside the Subway into the Walmart grocery area, and there was a big counter of lettuce sitting there. Like, oh, right there it is, guys. I mean,
Uh-huh.
you just gotta walk over and get it. So yeah, I just don't understand people. But maybe if I would have gotten ahead of lettuce and bring it back to Subway, they would have given me the sub free. I don't know. Oh my. Anyway, uh, yeah. So welcome everybody. And there's a traveler in our room tonight. I know I think just got back from Florida for his summer vacation. Just got back from Florida today, I think. And of course, this is our vacation night to show off some of the vacation spots where a few of you have been before. Hey, Melanie, I used to know this girl who she always burned her bills when she got a bill like the med bill or
Sure,
any kind
as
of
we all
bill.
want to.
Yeah, she burned her bills every month. Her name was Bernadette.
Oh boy.
So I just thought, she's only following what her what her name is. I was visiting a good family down in South one time, and they're kind of modernized, sort of the type of people, and just for the just to read some information, I asked for a newspaper. You have a local newspaper around, and they said newspaper. What's that? No, we don't use that anymore. We use our tablet to read the paper. That fly I killed never knew what hit it with that tablet. That, the fly had no idea that I killed it with a tablet, not the newspaper. But anyway, and finally, did you hear about the guy who lost three fingers at his job site? And he went into the emergency room, obviously, and the doctor was treating him, and the patient said, "Can I drive with this hand?" And the doctor said, "I would not count on it."
Yep.
So anyway, there we go.
Oh.
Enough of that. Hopefully that brought a little smile to all faces. Uh, I'm going to be emailing out to all you folks. There's a couple of things that people have brought to my interest, thanks to our listeners. And instead of playing it in the room like I was thinking about doing it, I'm going to send out a link to a YouTube video. It's by Terry Fator. I don't know if you ever heard of Terry Fator. He was the American Got Talent winner, I think, year one. Uh, great ventriloquist. Uh, and we saw him in York. Actually, twice we saw Terry in York and got to talk to him and meet him a little bit. But he sings a song, uh, which is my go-to song these days for if you're having a real bad day. He wrote a song called "Horses in Heaven," and it's actually a true story about that a mother of a 6-year old who had who lost her son due to cancer before he turned 7. She came to Terry and she told him the story about her son, that he had a friend who was also, his age, and they always played with plastic horses. And the boy's name, which I forget his name, but it doesn't matter. But I call him Johnny. Johnny said, "I wonder if there's horses in heaven. Are there horses in heaven?" And Mom came to Terry Fader after Johnny died and said, "Can you write a song about this?" And he said, "Oh, I'm not a composer. I'm a ventriloquist. But he said, "I'll try." And he actually thought about it for a good while. And as he tells the story, he said he woke up one morning at 2 o'clock in the morning, and everything was in his head, the words. And it's really a cool story. I don't want to play it in the Zoom room because I would need my box of tissues here, because the third verse gets everybody really. So when I send it out, actually the turtle is going to be singing it, not Terry. But you can figure that out on your own. But anyway, that'll be in with the link. And I think Melanie listened to, didn't you, Mel?
I sure did.
Did you like the third verse? You know what I'm talking about
I guess I would say I liked it. Oh, I
and Johnny
guess.
when Johnny when the other boy said when my other mom told the boy, his friend, that Johnny did die and went to heaven. He said, "Yeah, he told me there are horses in heaven." So anyway, we're gonna move on. So okay, what are we gonna do here? We're gonna start our intro. See, I got already worked up here already. Okay, find my new button here. Okay, yep, here we go. Some of this is, of course, repetitive, folks, but Zoom Rock Room. By the way, if we have any new viewers, which you might tonight, welcome aboard. This is what it's all about tonight, sort of thing. But Jerry Jones and Melanie Tracy, the Zoom Rock Room, and this is officially version number 130. We've done this 130 times uh, since April 2020. Yeah, 2020. Yeah, 2020. So anyway, it will be a fun night tonight, seeing some vacation pictures and all that. Zoom Rock Room, always sponsored by Lair Architect. Lake Havasu City. You'll see Lake Havasu City here in just a little bit when I highlight a couple of pictures from our vacation. But Lair Architect at yahoo.com if you want to contact Paul and Marcella Lair. Paul is actually my cousin. So he is designing a lot of structures and houses in Lake Havasu area. Retro Rocks is on board. This is the third show that they've been with us. And if you need any good rock samples, rocks, minerals, fossils, gemstones. They do have clothing, and also what makes it really, really cool is that they also have old vinyl and CDs, vinyl records and CDs, and anything else that dates back to those days. So they're located at 1809 Columbia Avenue in Lancaster, which is actually on the west side of Lancaster, pretty easy to get to if you get off at the Centerville or Royerstown exit and go into Columbia Avenue. This is what the store looks like. I'll remove these pictures after tonight, but rocks minerals here in the front, and back here's the records in the back of the store. He does have some local
So
specimens,
that place closing or what? I have no idea.
and does have some local specimens, fossils for sale. Pretty cheap, by the way. So anyway, stop in and see him and tell him that you saw his ad on the Zoom Rock Room, where you're a Zoom Rock Room member. Okay, go ahead, Melanie.
Sure thing. As always, the Dirt Man report. I don't think Andrew is in the room tonight, as I don't think I saw his name, but he's always uploading new videos to YouTube as well as any other social media platform, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Um, but his catchphrase is bringing the geology to you. So he goes out into the field, makes some really fun, educational, and sometimes comedic videos, and then he will upload them for you guys to view from home. So they are always very fun. Highly recommend.
Yeah, we do want to keep Andrew in our prayers. He did have a motorbike accident over the weekend and got pretty bruised up, and I think he got a black eye out of it too. But he was actually out collecting garnets down in Maryland and had a chance to ride a motorbike, which was probably not a good idea. So, all right, Buttonwood Nature Center in Waynesboro, the old Renfrew Institute, and they back us with advertising, educate, inspire, and unite. They are getting ready to getting closer to opening up their new property at the west end of Waynesboro once the concrete bridge is finished, which is down the road here, probably a month or so or more longer. But well, I actually did have an email from their director after the last show, and she does want to come on board here and say hi to everybody when she has a free moment and can make it. So join them on Facebook and Buttonwood Nature Center. They got lots going on. Well, Red Lion Telescopes with Wade Kraut. Um, he has a shop basically right out of his house, and I did see just recently that he's putting a lot of telescopes on sale cheap because he needs to make room for some newer stuff, and house is getting a little cluttered with telescopes, so he needs to unload some of these things. So if you're looking for a good beginning telescope, uh Wade's the one to go talk to, and he's actually gotten into astrophotography, and these are two of his more recent pictures that I saw on Facebook, called the Snowball Nebula in the constellation of Andromeda. He just took this picture, I believe, last night actually. uh and it's a nice object through the telescope, but astrophotography brings things out too. And this is the famous Lagoon Nebula in Sagittarius, which this is also up in the sky right now. If you know where to look for it, in the south sky in Sagittarius. So contact Wade Kraut and go see what he has for sale. Our schedule coming up, our next time that you all get together, Dr. Jennifer Pomeroy from York College of Pennsylvania will be here talking about maps. This is going to be a really cool program. I'm going to have to watch the video because I won't be here, but the past and the future with maps. Uh, she's a great teacher. I tell you what, she her students just love her, and I work with her every semester on doing field trips. But I don't want to embarrass Mel, but she's going to be soloing that night, so she'll have things under control with her whip in her hand and all that stuff. October 1st, get ready for the nature trivia game. Notice it says nature trivia game. So it's not going to be totally geology. In fact, there may not be any geology. Going to kind of even out the playing field. And we do have the prizes from Retro Rocks ready to be mailed out to our winners. October 15th, um, the search of the Juniad is with Paul, who's in the room tonight. I got to add the S on the back there. He's going to be talking about not the river, but the people. Uh, the new program that he's come up with. November 5th is a new program we just added with Bill Stevens. He did a program for us about 3 years ago on a mine down in Georgia. And he's going to be talking about Maine this time around. He likes to collect pegmatite minerals out of the Maine area. And November 19th, I'll be doing the rescheduled Atreus Wainer program that was supposed to have been 2 weeks ago, but with Eric Poplin in town, we made him the program. Which, by the way, I got to let you know that the video, something happened to the video, so we don't have the video of that show going on at all. So um, I think it was my fault. Hey, you might remember back in what, March, April, I warned everybody about this, about the star that was going to become a nova by September up in the what we call the Corona Borealis, or the Northern Crown constellation, which is right now just overhead, a little bit shifted to the west end of the sky. We call it the Northern Crown because of the configuration of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stars. But there's going to be a nova, and astronomers still say, although it didn't happen yet, uh, they say it's going to happen any day, really any day now. It's going to go nova and become bright for a short time and go back. They've actually discovered that this is a cyclic thing that this star does go through. And if you want to hear a good talk about Lancaster County geology, September the 12th, week from this coming Thursday, Lancaster County at the Columbia Crossings Visitor Center at 6 o'clock. I'll be doing the more of the geology along the northwest Lancaster County River Trail, but it will be a good one about pretty much all Lancaster County and about the river. So there is an admission charge of $10 that you need to register and buy tickets from the Susquehanna National Heritage group. And new website. People are finding it. I've been finding out. A lot of people have been subscribing to the website in the last 2 days for Jones Geo. Tanner has finally gotten things arranged. So jonesgeo.us is the new website. To go check it out. It's quite different and doesn't have as much information as the old one did, which is probably good. But you can subscribe to it. It doesn't cost anything. It just tells me that you're going to follow the website and what happens. So anyway, that's coming up there. So all right, we're going to move right on into our program, and I'm going to start this out. I'm going to start this out with my a couple of mine, and then Melanie has a couple that's going to join us. And this actually reflects back. Our vacation was actually last November, and some of you know that I did a little spot from the Grand Canyon for the Zoom Rock Room intro that night. But we basically went to Arizona because I have, of course, my cousin lives in Lake Havasu City with his dad, with my uncle. And so some geology pictures here. We're actually on Lake Havasu on a boat ride here, and I found these peaks interesting. These are all volcanic cones, which I understand are only 7 7,000 to 20,000 years old. Very, very recent volcanoes sticking up there. And this is actually what Lake Havasu City looks like uh, from a boat. So when I saw those peaks, it kind of raised my suspicion, and I had to dig into some of that information there. So here's a family shot. Vacations are about family a lot of times, right? So we either go see family or you take family with you on vacation. In this case, we kind of did both. Uh, this is my brother Carl, and this is my cousin Paul. That's Paul there, and this is his father, my uncle Elmore. He turned 96 years old while we were there. We had a big party for him, and at their house. That's why all the birthday cards are sitting there. But Elmore is doing quite well for that age, and we had a grand time to be there. While we were in Lake Havasu, one of my wife's ambitions to see, one of her spots she wanted to see was the London Bridge. The real London Bridge, folks, is in Lake Havasu, and there it is, right there. Okay, so we walked across the bridge. Say we walked across London Bridge, and actually we took our boat ride that we took that the first picture was out of was actually based right there. So if you go to Lake Havasu City, make sure you check out London Bridge, sort of thing. And of course, out in Arizona, you need to see a cliff dwelling. So this is Montezuma's Castle, which is south of Sedona. I was there in 1976 uh, while I was in college. So when we were in that area, I mentioned that I wanted to take Luann to Montezuma's Castle, which is a well preserved cliff dwelling. So you can check that out. And and of course the Grand Canyon. Why not go see that, right? A massive big hole in the ground, and depends on what time of day it is. The shadows are rather splendid. Geology is interesting, but it kind of gets old because it's all, not all, but visually, what you can mostly see is it's all horizontal rock going for miles and miles and miles. And, but, of course, the size of it, uh, my wife, we were there 2 days, and she said, "Yeah, I've seen enough. I don't need to come back," sort of thing. So, had a good time doing some hiking around the overlooks. And while we were, of course, in the area, one of my things I did want to see was Meteor Crater. So this is the Holsinger meteorite. That's what made the big crater there. This is a piece of what they did find. Uh, that's in their wonderful museum that they have there. It's worth the money. $25 a person to go see the crater, which is here it is. 3/4 of a mile in diameter, and it's about 550 feet deep. You really don't have that uh, impression just from this picture, but 550 feet deep, beautiful boardwalk structure, decks. When we were there, the wind gusts, actually, the wind gusts were up to 80 miles an hour, which is not unnormal for being there. Uh, they do what's called rim walks a couple times a day. You can actually sign up and go on a walk out, not around the whole rim, but they take you out to the rim. But they canceled those that day because of the wind and the safety. And we went to Oakland, Arizona. That's a old mining town, kind of in the western side of Arizona, not too far from actually from California. And it's a town that has not never changed with the times. And they do have a twice a day. They still have gun battles on Main Street. Uh, the donkeys still walk up Main Street. They just come walking through, uh, or or down at the parking lot. They just uh, stand in the parking lot waiting for free handouts at lunchtime. But occasionally a donkey will just come walking up Main Street or down Main Street and and all that. So um, cool place to go if you want to see an old mining town. This is the Ha Ha Lava. This is Sunset Crater, which is north of Flagstaff. My brother thought I needed to see the Ha Ha Lava. Ha Ha Lava is actually a Hawaiian terminology, but it's very spiny, very sharp basalt. And these basaltic lava flows, fields, that's what Sunset Crater is basically all about. It's really, really cool to stop in and see that. And this is the day that we were actually on our way up to the Grand Canyon, sort of thing. And on the right is the Church on the Rocks in Sedonia. It is a must see if you want to see some great architecture. It's a beautiful inside the church, looking out the windows out over the buttes and the mesas, and it's pretty cool. And of course, food. I did not challenge myself with this, Mister D's, which is a was a very popular restaurant along Route 66 in Kingman, Arizona. 4 pound burger with fries. Okay, and if you can eat the whole burger, I believe they give you a T-shirt if I remember right. Uh, but no, I didn't want to take a chance. So if you go to Mr. D's in Kingman, Arizona, uh, challenge yourself to the monster burger, okay, sort of thing. All right, and for Mel, here you go, Mel.
Alrighty, so not as much as a surprise or guessing of where I went this summer. Mine is a little bit more obvious, but this summer I went down to Florida. I'm not the biggest traveler. I wish I was. I wish I had more experience with traveling. But every once in a while, I get out of um, the Northeast a little bit. And this June, I went down to Florida, not for a vacation, but I believe I've mentioned before, I am also an athletic coach. I coach women's volleyball. So I had a team of 17-year-old girls, some teenage girls that qualified for the nationals tournament down in Orlando. So they played for 4 days, and while I was there, I was determined to make some of a vacation out of it. So it was a nice girls' trip. I have a younger sister who also plays volleyball. And our mother came as well. So it was a nice girls' trip with my mother and my sister. We stopped at Disney World, obviously. Um, and that is a picture of the castle. I went some other places too that are probably a little bit more obvious. So we also stopped at Animal Kingdom, being part of the parks. Love the outdoors, love the critters. So we did stop at Animal Kingdom, and that is the iconic tree of life. You can possibly see some of the animal carvings in it. So a rhino, it looks like an eagle down there. So that was also very fun. And we tried it, like I said, in between the volleyball coaching and the playing, trying to make a fun vacation. So we did stop in Animal Kingdom as well. And last but not least, this one might not be as obvious, but I am slightly nerd, I'll say, of yes, the natural sciences, but my fantasy loving heart did get to the Harry Potter castle as well. Read all the books as a kid. I loved watching the movies. So I did get my nerdy Harry Potter fix in while I was down there as well. So it was very, very fun. Like I said, I enjoyed some girl time with some family, and was, like I said, was coaching the entire time, and I was still teaching, still working. So although this was a bigger vacation for me, like I said, I don't travel too much, was still working on my vacation, still teaching. So it was phenomenal.
Did you do the Potter ride?
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
Of course.
I probably wouldn't do that. My wife was there. I wasn't there. because I was at Daytona.
I
But
had to get in all the experiences I could because I'm not sure when will be able to get back.
it's true. Okay, well, looked like you had a good time in June, and you always have fun things to do.
Oh, yes. Like I said, always busy. Even on vacation, I was still working.
And to sit around answering emails, and you're out running around.
Of
Okay, we're gonna stop this one. Thank you, Mel, for sharing that.
course.
Okay, okay, we're gonna move on because we have two of our room people that are going to be sharing. Larry Gildner is going to be the first one. I know Larry went north on his vacation, and I got to see actually got to see all of his pictures when he got back. So I asked Larry to share some of those pictures and talk a little geology. So it's all yours, Larry. You want to share the screen and take off?
Okay. Let's see here. All right, share. And
There you go.
um, you see the PowerPoint there?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, this is basically mostly the geology of Mount Desert Island and Acadia National Park, where my wife and I went for our 50th anniversary, because that's where we went for our honeymoon. But in the end here, I also have a few pictures from Japan. So moving along. Here's a just a general map of Mount Desert Island. The green areas here are, of course, the national park, which you see is kind of scattered throughout the island. Uh, most of the first things we're going to show you are here, kind of on the eastern side, and then the Wonderland Trail, that's and Seawall Road, that's all down here in this part of the island. Where we were staying was in the town of Southwest Harbor, which is just adjacent to the park, but not in the park. Um, the Just a quick overview of the geology. About 750 million years ago, Rodinia begins rifting apart, separating what became North America and Gondwana. Um, and I'm not going to belabor this, but I think the important point here is that there were a lot of rifting collisions, and a lot of uh, volcanic arcs and terrains, which are like chunks of a continent, as I understand it. They were getting pushed on to Laurentia, which is, of course, the budding North America. Um, 465 million years ago, the formation of Bar Harbor Formation, which is mostly sedimentary sandstone, siltstone, but has some ash layers in it too, as I understand it. Um, but that was formed, in the between sections of continent that were rifting apart, and as the sediment settled into the seafloor. The big event was about 420 million years ago, the Acadian orogeny, where a large volcanic caldera was formed, which is pretty much the basis of what you see today. And after that, many intrusions of basalt, granite, gabbro, and other things, and of course, closer to our time, glaciers too. This is again down the southeastern part of Acadia National Park. This is the Park Loop Road, and I identify these rocks as gabbro and quartzite, and that's based on a book that I really wish I'd had when I started our stay there, but I got at the very end. Um, but they have a picture of a road cut somewhere near here, and that's what they identified. The darker rock here is gabbro, and the lighter rock, as you see here up towards the top, is quartzite. Now, I can't speak to that being the gospel truth, but I'm just kind of basing this on the book I was using as a reference. Um, we're now overlooking Sand Beach, which you see down here in the cove. It's one of the rare sand beaches that actually exists on Mount Desert Island. In the foreground where I'm standing is the Cadillac Mountain granite, which makes up a good part of the entire island. The western side where I was just standing is the granite. About 16,000 years ago, this whole area, well, the beach, was about 200 feet below sea level. And of course, mud was deposited there. And over time, the land rose as the glaciers retreated and reached present sea levels about 2,000 years ago. And as it says there, the beach is from the protected nature of the cove. And I saw this for myself. A good part of what I'm referring to as sand is actually broken shells. Now, on the opposite side of the beach, the eastern side, is a mixture of the granite, gabbro, and the Bar Harbor Formation. I saw the book referred to it sometimes as a shatter zone, but it's at the edge of the magma body. When that eruption occurred around 420 million years ago, the surrounding existing rock fell into the magma chamber, and you'll see what it looks like in a minute here. Of course, this is the sand beach. Um, some people were actually in the water, and let me tell you, that was very cold water, and they actually had a lot of signs up warning people about hypothermia, but it didn't seem to stop some people. Now we're on the eastern end of the beach. You can start to see all the variety of rocks that have been deposited there, either by wave actions, glaciers, or the weathering out of the bedrock. Now, here's an example of what I was saying in that shatter zone. You can see that you have a matrix of granite there, but you have all these other different chunks of rock, various sizes and shapes, all incorporated into the granite. Another picture. And another one. I'm not going to attempt to identify what the rocks are that are incorporated into this, but it's a great example of the geology that was taking place millions of years ago. And this is Thunder Hole. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of Thunder Hole, but it's a place where, due to wave action, freeze thaw, and whatnot, and the direction of the joints in the granite here in this part of the island, it kind of eroded a slot and a hole in the side of the rock there. And when it's when you get there at the right time, and unfortunately this time we were not at the right time, tide-wise or wave-wise, but there's an overhang, a little chamber that's in the end there, that when the waves are at the right height and come in just right, it traps the air and compresses the air and causes a thunder-like sound. And many years ago on a honeymoon, I remember being there, and you could feel the wave of compression wave hit you from that. It was pretty amazing, but unfortunately, this time we didn't get to experience that. Um, and the book, according to the book, may only be a few more decades or maybe 100 years before that overhang gets destroyed anyway. So it was a very temporary thing.
Huh.
Um, and here's the granite above. This is old Cadillac Mountain granite here. It's above Thunder Hole. There's a close-up where it almost looks like it was freshly broken off by, I don't know, freeze thaw, whatever. But you can see how rather beautiful color, in my opinion. But this is Thunder Hole itself. Now, this was near high tide, so you can see that the water was just about filling it up. And like I said, unfortunately, we didn't really get to experience it in all its glory this time around. But it's still something worth seeing if you're ever in Mount Desert Island in Acadia National Park. Now, going a little farther south, this is Otter Point. And I'm not, from what I can see, if you look carefully, all this looks like granite here, but if you look in the center of the picture, you can see it's something else. And that's something we saw in a number of places where, um, these other types of rock are embedded in the granite. Um, Here's another place near where that other picture was taken. And from what this reference book I'm using here says, this very pale colored rock is probably the Bar Harbor Formation, which is mostly sedimentary, not entirely, but mostly sedimentary. And this is either volcanic tuff or what they called felsite. I'm not entirely clear what they meant by felsite, um, but again, a different kind of rock as compared to the granite you're seeing back here. And one of the boulders that was sitting there, this one, I think, just judging from the layering, might be the Bar Harbor Formation, but again, I'm not sure. Now this is more in the southwest corner of the island. I thought this was interesting because it illustrates the power of nature. This is the Seawall Road, which was destroyed back in January of this year by a couple of winter storms, and apparently this has been happening with some regularity, and the authorities are very reluctant to keep repairing it. But a lot of the local people want it repaired because, for one thing, there's a campground on one side of this causeway, and of course, the national park on the other side. And a lot of people depend on that because without this road being in place, they have to take a long detour. But I just wanted to Oh, and another point I wanted, and this is kind of common. You see this at Sand Beach and other places, and right here as well. This is a freshwater lagoon that was separated by the ocean from the ocean by, in this case, the causeway or some sort of dune, a rock dune, sand dune, whatever. But you do see that along the shoreline in a lot of the places here on Mount Desert Island. And
Hmm.
this is where it actually breached the road entirely.
No.
This is Wonderland Trail. Again, this is more in the southwestern part of the island. And when you get out to the shoreline, this is what you see, a lot of rocky shores, just like most of the island. And again, you know, granite matrix with a lot of other things that have been embedded in it. Again, you see the granite and some what I assume to be erratics brought in by the glacier. You can see they're different, and they're just kind of piled in a jumble. Now we're at the summit of Cadillac Mountain. I put Mount Cadillac, I should say Cadillac Mountain. But anyway, here's a little brief video.
Hmm.
Also top of Cadillac Mountain. Jerry, I don't know if would you regard these as glacial striations or that more joints I'm seeing in the rock?
I believe that's joining.
That's what I had assumed, but I got to wondering, but I assumed it was more joining, just judging from the depth of them.
Yep.
Now this is Champlain Mountain, which is just east of Cadillac Mountain, and I really am not sure, but you notice all the dark vertical stripes in the mountain there. I am assuming that those are also some sort of uh, basaltic intrusions or dikes that are in the granite there.
Yep.
Now, it's Beach Mountain, another trail, and it's just kind of an illustration of what most of the trail was like. Some of it was quite rocky too. But this is the really interesting thing. If you'll notice, this is like a basalt dike. And for scale, that blaze you see on the basalt is about an inch and a half wide. But you see granite over here, and in between this very thick layer, which I assume to be basalt.
Yep. Looks like it.
I just scenic view from near the top of Beach Mountain.
Oh, wow.
And again, more this time there's two of them. There's smaller, one right here and another one right here. And again, granite otherwise.
Yep. Thanks.
So yeah, feel free to hop in anytime you want, Jerry. Anyway, and just more jointing again near the top of the mountain, as most of the island is granite of one kind or another. There are the Cadillac Mountain granite is most common, but there's, I think, a Southwest Harbor granite and some others too. Um, this is Little Hunters Beach, another area where existing rocks were on the edge of the magma chamber and fell into the magma, and you see some erratics. This trail to Little Hunters Beach. There's a Hunters Beach and Little Hunters Beach. And of course, you see the boulders everywhere. And again, well, there's a freshwater stream that's coming down to the ocean here, but it's actually kind of dammed up behind this rock dune and kind of trickles through the rock. But I really like this rock. It was really fascinating to me because you see the granite here, but you see something here, a different rock here, and then you have this rock, which almost looks to me like it was partially melted and bent. I don't know what, Jerry, you got any thoughts on that one?
I don't. And that has me complexed.
Yeah, but anyway, I thought it was really interesting. And again, this is just one of the rocks laying there on the beach.
That might be a xenolith
Okay.
that fell into the magma. You'll get isolated blocks,
Hmm.
the surrounding rock that fall into the magma, and then the magma cools off, and you get xenolith means strange rock. So they're
Uh-huh.
embedded in the magma.
Hmm. Yeah, I kind of thought it was something along those lines, but in any case, I just found it a really cool rock. And here you see stripes of a different color granite. You got gray granites here, and pink in between. And this is a view from where we were staying there in Mount Desert Island. And it's a harbor right there. This is beautiful view from our little house that we stayed in. So now
Yeah.
moving on to the Japanese Alps. This is Mount Komagatake, the location of the highest ropeway and hotel in Japan. And you'll see pictures of it's an alpine meadow with a in a glacial cirque. This is the mountain stream coming down off the mountains. This is looking downstream. This is looking upstream. I was told by my daughter that it's icy cold water there. You know, might have been 95 degrees where we were, but that water is icy cold.
Hmm.
Now, to get up to the ropeway itself, we actually had to take a bus on a very narrow one-lane road that does narrow switchbacks all the way up, or a good way up the mountain. And I don't know how they had it timed, but there were a few places where the bus would pull over and there was a lane for the bus coming down to pass. So we'd pull over, and I don't think we ever waited more than a minute or so before the other bus came down. Then we would just proceed up. But we had to do all that just to get up to where the ropeway started. And here's a little video.
それでは、これから終点天井寺までは、まもなく2本の汽車の線になっています。それでは、これから終点天井寺までの約7分30秒の空中散歩ご一緒にお楽しみください。Thank you for taking the Chuo Kanko Komagatake Ropeway. This ropeway goes up to Senjojiki Station. At an elevation of 2,612 meters, Senjojiki Station is the highest station in Japan. The difference in elevation from the start to end of this ropeway is 950 meters. This is the largest difference in Japan.
Picture from another on the way up. Eventually, we got up into the clouds. And here's a picture of the near the top of the mountain. At the time I took this picture, that the clouds were still kind of over the mountain, Um, with, you'll see in a bit that it did clear off. But this is like the Alpine Meadow, and this is a glacial cirque, like a bowl-shaped feature at the top of a mountain where the head of a glacier would form. And you see people walking here. There's this little loop trail which we walked, which takes you down through the meadow and back up to where the hotel and ropeway is. And all kinds of beautiful alpine flowers and just a little glimpse of that. And the air up there just smelled so spicy sweet. It was just really a cool experience to be there. And we were up, the altitude here was about 8,700 feet, by the way. Um, and you see the narrow knife edge ridge here up at the top. And I believe that's an arête where glaciers had carved away both sides of the ridge, leaving this very sharp edge ridge at the top. Some people were walking up there. There is a path kind of right up here, which we didn't try to take. But here's the best view I got
Oh, wow.
that day of what it looks like overall. And it's very busy place, very popular area. So anyway, this is my bibliography. That book, The Guide to the Geology of Mount Desert Island and Acadia National Park, as is cited there, that's where I got a lot of my information from. The map was at that website you see there. And where I got the book, and if you're ever up there, make sure you go to the Maine Granite Industry Museum. On the outside, it's on a small road there on the island. And on the outside, it doesn't look like that much, but you go inside there and it really was well worth the time. The older gentleman who runs the place, very knowledgeable about the industry, has all kinds of exhibits of the history and you know, and the rocks and everything else. And it's definitely worth your time. But in any case, that's the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Give me a round of applause there. That's great. That was good.
Thank you.
By the way, a felsite is a rock, of course, it has feldspar in, similar to a granite, a rhyolite. Sometimes they just group it into a class called felsite.
Hmm.
Uh,
Okay. It
uh,
wasn't entirely clear. I know they used the term, but what clear
right.
what it meant exactly.
Yep, did very well. Anybody have any questions for Larry? You will type them into type them into your chat if you have any questions about the Maine and Japan trip.
I want to go to Japan now after seeing those pictures.
And if you do, make sure you visit an active volcano.
Yeah.
The National Park Mount Aso in the southern island of Kyushu. That definitely is something you would really love.
Yep, okay. Excellent job.
Thank you.
Okay, then Steve Lindbergh is going to take us the other direction,
Let's see.
into the northwest area.
I think I got it. We can see that.
We got you.
Let's see. I'm going to go full screen here and hope I don't freeze up. So, okay, well, that was awesome, Larry. Thanks. Those are great pictures. It's been, oh my goodness, it's been a long time since I've been to Mount Desert Isle. I've got to get back up there now. So, all right. So my vacation pictures are a place I've always wanted to go to. And we did that. We just got back a few weeks ago. So from July 26th to August 6th, um, we took a land and sea tour on Norwegian cruise lines up to Alaska. And this was a family tour, family and friends, and there were 23 of us that went on the trip. Um, so this was the first cruise that my wife and I had ever taken. So it was kind of neat to be on a cruise ship. It was a Norwegian Cruise Lines. It was the Norwegian Jewel. Ship was almost 1,000 feet long and about 2,300 passengers. And this was our itinerary. We flew from Pittsburgh to Minneapolis and then Minneapolis to Anchorage. And when we landed in Anchorage, we had a free day to kind of walk around and tour the city of Anchorage, which was kind of the focus of, I'll show you a couple of slides of the earthquake damage from 1964, but that was the focus of an enormously powerful earthquake. And then from Alaska, we took a land tour by bus and train up to Denali, and then back down to Anchorage, and then a bus to Seward, where we picked up the cruise ship. So the white circles here was the land part of our tour, and red and yellow circles were the cruise ship tour on Norwegian. So we went from Seward to Skagway to Juneau, Icy Strait, and then Ketchikan, and then down to Vancouver, where we disembarked and flew back home. So let's see if this is working. So just a little bit of background about the geology of Alaska. Larry mentioned to this in his presentation, and although the east coast of the United States is not on an active plate boundary, Alaska is, and it sits right along the Aleutian Trench, which is part of the Pacific Ring of Fire. All around the Pacific Ocean, this is a ring of subduction zones where the crust is being pushed beneath the continents. And here's kind of a cutaway down in the lower right-hand corner. So here's Alaska, and the red lines are the subduction zones, and the Aleutian Islands and the Alaskan Peninsula is there because of the Pacific Plate being subducted under the North American continent. And you can kind of put things into perspective here. Here's Anchorage, and then Seward. We did not stop at Valdez. And we were in Skagway also, and there's Juneau, then back down here to Vancouver. So one of the things that really, really amazed me is the geology in Alaska was incredibly complex. It is a massive assemblage, and this is something that Larry mentioned also, of accreted terrains throughout geologic history. So when you look at Alaska, if you look at the map on the left-hand side, each one of those different colored belts is a separate, what we call an exotic terrain, or was a separate landmass that was accreted onto the North American continent beginning back in the late Precambrian. So all of these different mountain ranges are kind of lined up in echelon across the entire state. And we see that when we tour across Alaska, and it's still an incredibly volcanically and seismically active region because you're sitting right on top of a major subduction zone. And the diagram over on the left doesn't match the one on the right exactly. I could not find a cross section that went across the diagram on the left, but you can see each one of those different colored wedges is an accreted terrain that was shoved onto and added to the North American continent, and that is how Alaska formed. And one of the best analogies I can give you, and I found this online, was a little geology lesson, is if you want an example of how Alaska formed, the next time you go shopping, food shopping, you put your groceries on the little checkout conveyor belt, and as the groceries slide along a conveyor belt, if the cashier doesn't take them off the end, they start piling up against each other, and that's the 500 million year history of Alaska. So each one of those separate groceries items is one of the terrains that has formed Alaska. So we flew from Minneapolis up to Anchorage. Was a pretty spectacular flight. And maybe about, I'm going to say about 45 minutes before we landed in Anchorage, we looked out. We were sitting on the right-hand side of the plane, and we looked out the window, and there it was. That is Mount McKinley. That is Denali. We were at, according to the flight tracker on the back of the seat, we were at 30,000 feet above sea level. And the elevation of Denali, formerly Mount McKinley, is 20,310 feet. Up until a few years ago, it was 20,320 feet, and they remeasured it using laser ranging from space. So they actually lowered it by 10 feet. So there, in that spectacular presence. That is Denali with its double peaks on top. And these are just two pictures about 10 minutes later as we're coming into Anchorage of the coastal ranges in Alaska. And I did not really know exactly what we were flying over and what the names of these mountains were, but they were absolutely spectacular. You felt like you could reach out the window and touch all of these. It was kind of scary. And you can see the massive glaciers flowing down towards the coast from within these mountains. So our first stop was Anchorage. All day Friday, we kind of we had a free day before we had tickets to head up on the train and the bus to Denali. So we toured the city. We went to several museums, the city hall, the museums about the earthquake, and what I like to try to do, and I do the same thing with Civil War battlefields in Gettysburg, is I like to do a then and now photo comparison. So the black and white picture on the right is a famous photograph taken after the great March 1927, 1964 magnitude 9.2 earthquake that wrecked the coast of Alaska from Anchorage to Juneau to Seward to Valdez. They say the ground shook for a total of 4 minutes. In some places, the surface of the earth outside of Anchorage, and I'll show you this, is still rippled from the seismic waves. And my photograph is the one on the left. So this is actually the picture that I took, and I am standing in almost exactly the same spot that this 1964 photograph was taken. So you're looking down one of the main streets in Anchorage here, and the sidewalk that you see here, of course, has been replaced, but this sidewalk is the same as this one here. So I didn't get the angle exactly right because I had to stand out in the middle of traffic. But there's a before and after. This was the largest earthquake to ever strike the North American continent, and it still holds the record at 9.2. The outskirts of Anchorage, here's the larger map of Alaskan Peninsula and Cook Inlet. So here is this is the city of Anchorage sits right in here. This is which we sailed up into, or flew into, I'm sorry. Cook Inlet is actually named after Captain Cook, who was trying to discover the Northwest Passage and made several trips to the Pacific. And he sailed up this body of water thinking that it would connect and go across the North American continent. And the little interesting fact is these little inlets that extend off Cook Inlet, these are called arms. And this is Turnagain Arm. And the reason this is called Turnagain Arm is because Captain Cook, every time he sailed into one of these, it ended up as a dead end, and he had to turn again and head back out into the Pacific and try to find another route across the North American continent. One of the housing developments outside of Anchorage was called Turnagain Heights, and it's built on glacial till. And during the 1964 earthquake, this part of Anchorage shook violently, and the ground just became liquefied and shifted out and settled down into Turnagain Arm, into the water. You can see that this area of the earthquake suffered major subsidence. In some places, the crust went down over 100 feet. There was a huge tsunami that came up into Cook Inlet and Turnagain Arm, and also Prince William Sound. There's the focus of the earthquake. Where this picture was taken in 1964, that's where I'm standing right here. So you're looking in the same direction. So this was, you can see houses here that have been tossed around on the broken ground that became liquefied, and this shifted down towards the water. So we're exactly the same place here. And this was a tour that we took of Earthquake Park. So these trees have all grown up over this region, and the ground has kind of settled since 1964. But you could actually walk down this path and go into the woods, and the ground was actually rippled still in huge waves. And in recent years, the vegetation has grown up so much that it's covered the remains of the houses. So there are still homes down here, and you can see some of the concrete structures and the chimneys sticking out above that damage. So you can't go to Alaska and not shop for gold nuggets. I passed on this one. In Anchorage, there was a big shop called the Anchorage Mint, and it was a coin and gold shop, actually the Alaska Mint. And gentleman there was quite accommodating. They had hundreds and hundreds of different sized gold nuggets that are still being brought in by the miners up there, and they resell them all. And I passed on this one. He let me hold this one in the case. This was a 7.12 ounce gold nugget, and the price was $32,500. And they had cases and cases of gold nuggets of all sizes. I passed on this one. I was thinking of putting it on layaway for Christmas, but my wife said no. So I ended up buying a small one, and there it is. I bought a really small one of less than a gram, and you can see the same kind of little blue folders that are in the case here. So from Anchorage, we took a bus and train trip up to Denali National Park, and the weather smiled on us that day, and we became part of they call it the 30% club. Only 30% of the people that head up to Denali get up there on a clear day and get to see the mountain. And this was as close as we got. We're still about 45 miles from the mountain, and there is Denali in the background, rising to over 20,000 feet. And here's a close-up view of that. So there is Denali, still shrouded in some cloud layers, but the entire mountain was visible to us. On the way up to Denali, lots of moose. Out in the taiga is the type of tundra plains that are up there. So there were lots of moose. This is the some of the wildflowers, fireflower, I believe that's called. These are caribou that were sitting along the side of the road during the bus trip up. And this was the highlight of the one of the highlights, I would have to say, probably the best experience I've had in many years. Part of my reason for wanting to go to Alaska was I wanted to get up on a glacier, and we did that. So this is now in Juneau, and this was our second or third stop on the cruise ship. So we've left Anchorage, and we've gotten on the cruise ship now. We stopped in Juneau overnight, and my daughter and I booked a glacial trip on a private helicopter tour. So this is the helicopter coming in to pick us up at the Juneau airport, and we've just taken off here. And this is the residential area of Juneau. This is the view out through the helicopter. This is the Mendenhall Glacier. This is the Mendenhall Lake, and this is the Mendenhall River. And if you look right here, that is a waterfall coming down off the glacier from the back. And I think I have a close-up view of that later on. And then this is not Mendenhall Glacier. This is a view from the helicopter. We actually flew around these mountains that you see here, and we came in up above about 10 miles. So this is up above Mendenhall Glacier. This was a small glacier that was feeding into it. As the glaciers come down from the mountains, they join together. This is a medial moraine where two glaciers come together. The glacial till forms a moraine in the center of the glacier, and that's called a medial moraine. So I just wanted to show you where we were. This is from Google Earth. The cruise ship came up Stevens Passage, and here is Juneau, and the airport for Juneau. Here's a close-up view. I've kind of zoomed in here on Google Maps. So this is a close-up view. So here's the city of Juneau. We drove out to the Juneau airport, and here is the Mendenhall Glacier right here. And this is Mendenhall Lake. and that waterfall was right here. And we took off from the airport in a helicopter and flew up over these mountain ranges. And then we followed this glacier up right here, and we landed on the ice field in an enormous cirque. As Larry mentioned, the bowl-shaped depressions. This was an enormous cirque or an ice field that feeds multiple glaciers. And that's where we landed. And here's a closer view of that still on Google Maps. So this was Mendenhall Lake. This is where the visitor center is. You can drive up to here and then you can park at the visitor center and you can see the glacier from a distance and you can walk up to the waterfall. So this is Mendenhall Glacier. And this is the route our helicopter took as we flew up, and it landed us here on the ice. And this is an enlarged view of that, not a picture that I took, but this is from Google Maps. So that previous picture that I showed you of the medial moraines, that was right in here. So we flew up in here, and they had a base camp here on the ice, and that's where we landed, and here we are. I have videos of this, but I didn't import them into the PowerPoint here. I could switch at the end and show you the videos, but this base camp is the tour company for the ice field up here. And then they subcontract this helicopter company to fly tourists up. So there were about 15 of us. There's 3 helicopters that take off from the Juneau airport and fly people up here. You have about 2 hours on the glacial ice. The people that run this camp, they stay up here all summer long. They have huge Quonset huts on wooden sleds, and they have all their supplies up there. If they need something, the helicopters take them back down to Juneau. It was about a 20-minute helicopter flight. In the background here, these little huts are for the sled dogs. There were 250 sled dogs up here that pull the sleds across the ice. So they also take you on a sled ride across the ice. So this is flying into the ice field just before we landed. You can see another small glacier feeding into that. Here we are up on the ice, and these were the Quonset huts that the team up here at the base camp live in all summer long. This ice is constantly moving, and all of these huts and the little dog houses for the sled dogs, every 2 or 3 weeks, they need to pull them back into an organized pattern because they start to get dragged in different directions as the ice moves. This was one of the most spectacular places I think that I've ever been to. No matter what direction you looked in, you saw these spectacular mountains with glacial ice spilling down into this cirque, and then it was leaving the cirque and feeding the surrounding glaciers. It was about 40 degrees up here. It was much warmer than I expected. I didn't have to wear gloves. It was extremely bright though when the sun came out. And if you bent down, you'll notice there's a lot of sled dogs up here. So you had to be careful where you picked up the ice to taste it. You didn't want yellow ice, and you definitely didn't want brown ice. But when you picked up a handful of this glacial ice, it was colder than any ice or snow I've ever felt here in Pennsylvania. It was incredible how cold it was. Big difference in that. So here's just a couple of other views. The scale of this area is beyond description. Pictures just don't do it justice. You cannot imagine how high these mountains were. And then this is zoomed in to one of the side glaciers coming in off another ice field that's feeding into the cirque. This wall of ice was at least 300 or 400 feet high, if not higher. And there's one of the helicopters coming in to land on the ice field to bring in the next group of tourists. And they give you about an hour to walk around up here on the ice. They tell you not to wander away too far because there were crevasses on the ice. And I found it very, very disorienting because you look out across the ice, and if there was no mountain range there, you could not tell where the ice ended and the sky began. You lost the horizon, and it was very, very disorienting. We got on the dog sleds, and they take you for a mile or two, excuse me, out across the glacial ice. So we were up there for about 2 hours. While we were up on the ice field, the rest of our uh, party, the rest of our family and friends, they drove into the Mendenhall Glacier Visitor Center. And there's a visitor center there with a nice geological display. There were bald eagles everywhere. I'm going to say over the 12 days that we were up in Alaska, there were hundreds of bald eagles. They were simply everywhere, and especially down in the ports where the fishing vessels were. They were just everywhere. Here is that waterfall that I pointed out to you in a slide that was taken much further away. And this is the Mendenhall Glacier in the background here. It's actually behind that little ridge. And these pictures were taken by my family members. So they hiked up to the waterfall. There's the Mendenhall Glacier and Mendenhall Lake. And of course, no caption is needed here. While in Juneau, there was a famous restaurant in Juneau called Tracy's Crab Shack. And I had to stop in. And being a seafood lover, they specialized in Alaskan king crab and Dungeness crab. So while the rest of them were souvenir shopping on the streets of Juneau, I spent time inside eating some crab, which was excellent. And then this is another stop. This is Skagway, Alaska. Really, really neat. Reminds you of a Western town, but you're up in Alaska, so it's kind of like the Alaska and West. Skagway was known as the gateway to the Yukon goldfields. There's that famous photograph of the miners climbing up Chilkoot Pass on the ice and snow, and they're stretched out for thousands of feet climbing the mountain. And that took place just outside of Skagway. So we took a train trip up what is known as White Pass, and you get on the train and you head up through White Pass, and you actually go all the way up into, you just cross into Canada. And we had our passports with us, but you don't have to go through customs because you don't get off the train. You make a big loop and you come back down. But this was an absolutely spectacular train ride. That's my wife, Marilyn, and the whole family took this. You head up White Pass, and just a spectacular train ride. You go up the tracks along the side of the mountain. You pass the old train trestle that was built in the late 1800s. When I first saw that, I saw this was collapsing out of the train window. I saw this from a distance. I said, "Oh my God, don't tell me we're driving over that." And we didn't. We went right past it. But this this is also from the train window. This is Dead Horse Gulch, or Dead Horse Pass. And during the gold rush into the Yukon, which is still 500 miles from here. So the miners had to climb about 100 miles from Skagway up to the top of this mountain range through this pass. And then once they got up on top, they still had another 500 miles to go to reach the Yukon. And I think the person in the train was telling us that out of 1,000 miners, out of 1,000 people that rushed to Alaska, with the goal of getting up to the Yukon and getting rich, finding gold, out of 1,000, every 1,000 people that went up there, only 10 made it and found gold and managed to come back down. A lot of people died along this route, or they simply abandoned the quest and went back to live in Alaska. But this is Dead Horse Gulch. The miners would leave Skagway and carry their equipment up this gulch, and it was extremely steep. And over a 2 or 3 year period, 5,000 horses died in this gulch, and their bodies were just left there. And there's some vintage historical photographs that just show the horses and the horse skeletons scattered in here, because the miners would load them with 1,000 pounds of equipment and just drive them until they dropped over dead. And then they would try to acquire another horse to get their stuff up on top into the Yukon. And this is a view from the train. We're heading up to the top, to the Canadian border, and that little cut that you see on the bottom there, that's where we've just come from. So that's the train track right there coming up the side of this mountain. So we came up this way and made a huge turn over here. And now we're on the next mountain looking back at where we came from. And then once you get up on top, you cross into Canada. So you can see the United States and Canadian flag. And the tracks here make a big loop and you just head back down. This is Ketchikan, another stop from the cruise ship. Neat little fishing town and also a gold mining area. Quite scenic, very beautiful. There was a big statue in the center of the town of the gold miners. There's a part of our family, my daughter Amanda and the grandkids and other friends joining us. And I just recently, 2 weeks ago in the news, Ketchikan, the town of Ketchikan sits at the base, as do a lot of these. Let me see if it's in on the last slide. Ketchikan sits at the base of, you really can't see them in this photograph, but especially where this is the cruise ship and where we disembarked to get into Ketchikan. But the mountains here just rise right out of the inlet. And 2 weeks ago, there was a massive rock slide that came down and blocked, destroyed a good part of the town. And I think now it's kind of been isolated and cut off. They even stopped cruise ships from going in there because of this massive rock slide. There were salmon everywhere. Once again, this is Ketchikan, and you walk along the boardwalk here by the harbor, and you look down in the water, and the water was just filled with hundreds and hundreds of salmon of all different species. And if I remember this correctly, the tour guide was telling us that if you are an Alaskan resident, you were allowed to catch 25 salmon a year. And that's what most people up there do. And then every other member in your household gets 10 salmon. And it doesn't matter if they're 18 years old or an infant. So if you have a family, if you're, family of three, you get 25 salmon, then another 10, 35, 45. So a family of three can take 45 salmon a year. And most people do that. So there's a quick run through our trip. I had to really cut it back because I had about 750 slides, and I knew I wouldn't have 9.5 hours to share with you. So I can show a quick video. I know we're kind of out of time. I can always do it. I can do it another night, Jerry, but there's my presentation. So,
All right. Yeah, maybe I'll put that on hold, the video.
yes, yeah, we're running over here. So I tried to put some of the better pictures in.
See, there's a comment from Tony.
Oh,
She said when
oh, look.
when they were on the glacier, we were told that if you fell into the crevasse, you wouldn't be found for 75 years.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know exactly what the timeline is, but uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, we saw them up there, and when we were flying over it with the helicopter, I mean, he came in low, and the crevasses in that glacier were just enormous. Um, the helicopter pilot told us that most of them were large enough where you could drive a school bus into them, and the school bus would simply disappear. We flew over boulders that were the size of houses, and they looked small compared to the size of the glacier. Um, it was really incredible. So
Cool. All right. Hey, two good programs there tonight for you, folks. Anybody in the room wants to just tell us where you went on vacation? You don't have to show us any pictures, but anybody just want to say where you went this summer if you did?
We went to Mount Cuba, but the only trouble was it was the beautiful gardens, but it was 110 on the thermometer in the shade.
Oh my.
So we stuck to the woods and to Bombay Hook to see all the shorebirds. That was really fun.
Okay. Cool.
Well,
Anybody
Jerry,
else?
I'll be on vacation again. I'll see you the first weekend in October at Gettysburg.
Yep, we're gonna
That's a
rip
mini
right to get
vacation.
Battle of Gettysburg and see who wins.
Yeah.
Yep,
Round Top just opened again.
right. Little Round Top's back open. I guess it's all open now at this point. You can go watch the beaver dams down at the Devil's Den. They got the creek all dammed up.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of mixed feelings about that. I wish they would drain that. I don't know. That's
And we didn't really go away this summer. Won't go away until maybe next spring.
yeah.
But Melanie, where do you like to go on vacation to wrap this up?
Well, I always go, like I said, I'm not a big traveler, but we go to Ocean City every fall, so that's coming up for an extended weekend with some extended family. So
Right.
that'll be nice.
Yeah.
But I would love to take a Steve trip. I would love to go to Alaska or anywhere out west, Montana, Wyoming, Colorado. I'd love it. It's on the bucket list.
Hey, 2026, we're thinking of going to Iceland. So
Hmm.
keep us in mind.
Right.
Lots of room. Fly to Reykjavik, and there's cruise ships that go around Iceland, and you get off at different locations. So,
Yeah, okay. This has been a fun night. Thank you, Larry and Steve. And I'm one of the other millions I'm gonna have in that email to you is I did not read the article, so don't ask me questions. But a research paper just came out and said that geologists now realize that gold is formed in quartz when there's an earthquake. And apparently, they've proven this that gold forms as a result of earthquakes, uh, doing something with the quartz vein. So find yourself some quartz and put it into a shaker at home and see if you can raise some gold uh, there. But you should find that of interesting reading. Okay, 2 weeks from tonight, Dr. Pomeroy, York College of Pennsylvania, geographer, will be talking to you about the history and future of maps and all that. So I won't see you in those 2 weeks. I'll see you back here in a month for our nature trivia game. So study up for your nature uh, for that and all that. So, all right, go ahead, Melanie.
All right, as always, thank you guys so much for joining us. We'll see you next time.
We'll see ya.
bye bye, everyone. Have a good 2 weeks.